These mountains of white powder are the foundation of an international multi-billion-dollar industry, asbestos.
Today's video is going to be something unorthodox. If you're used to me building stuff, come back for the next video. We'll definitely do that. But the problem is that we're now moving the operation inside the house, and frankly, I'm afraid there's going to be a lot of asbestos. Now, the reason I'm afraid of this asbestos is because this house is built in 1963. I know, 60-year-old plus house, super old. And asbestos was outlawed after building in 1989. That is way freaking too recent. Now, if you're not familiar with what asbestos is essentially this small fibrous molecule that you can't actually observe through a naked eye. You have to have the lab scientists put it under a microscope and test it.
Most famous as a fire protector, asbestos was woven into the fabric of our daily lives. This versatile and nearly indestructible fiber was once called the magic mineral. These Canadian mines supply over half the Western world's white asbestos, including most of the 95,000 tons imported into Britain every year. There are three main types of asbestos, but the white, or chrysotile, is the most commonly used both in Britain and America.
And the reason it's so dangerous is because it's not traceable by the naked eye. It's not like mold that you could see. It creates these severely dangerous causing issues in your respiratory drives. Things like mesothelioma, lung cancer, and it could also create colon cancer through your digestive tract. All things we're trying to avoid.
This factory inspector's report was the first warning sign. That was in 1898, 84 years ago. By 1906, a British worker reported to his doctor that his team of 10 asbestos workers were all dead, average age 30. By 1931, the link with disease was so clear, the British government passed its first asbestos regulations. They ordered that there should be no asbestos dust in the workplace. By 1935, the link between lung cancer and asbestos became recognized. 14 years after that cancer risk was known, a doctor from America noted that a British company, Cape Asbestos in South Africa, used young children to process raw asbestos by hand. Standing over them, a supervisor with a whip. Even by the age of 12, he discovered, several child workers had asbestosis and heart failure. By 1955, Oxford University scientists found that lung cancer among British asbestos workers was 10 times the national average. Smoking increases the lung cancer risk for asbestos workers by 55 times.
I actually have a family friend who died from asbestos 10-15 years ago, and it was a really quick death, and it's devastating. So because we are working on the inside of the house, we got to make sure that when we are demoing things, the stuff that's in the air is not gonna, affect me and the guys that help me, putting everybody's life in danger, that we can continue making this channel grow.
In addition to lung cancer, by 1960, doctors had established the lethal and once rare form of cancer, mesothelioma, was also caused by asbestos. Finally, in 1969, the accumulation of years of evidence forced the British government to introduce new workplace regulations. In determining what they called a safe dust level, that is how many fibers can be breathed in per hour, they only took into account the risk of asbestosis, not lung cancer or mesothelioma. But as asbestos cancer can take 20 or 30 years to develop, the effects of controlling dust levels can't be seen for several decades. Asbestos has been regulated for over half a century.
We found it in the thyroid gland, which is in the neck. We found it in the brain. We found it in the intestines. We found it in the spleen. We found it in the liver. And so we concluded that asbestos fibers can be carried by way of the bloodstream to different organs in the body.
Guys, your personal information is being sold online and published without you even knowing it. That's why the sponsors of today's video is Incogni. Every year, data breaches and identity theft have gone up 45.5%, and that's only since 2021. Data brokers harvest your information like name, aliases, home address, location, search history, and they sell it to businesses, and it could fall into the wrong hands to cyber criminals as well. Another problem is people search sites. We all do, it's normal. But the problem is these websites create very detailed profiles of these users, things like license plate numbers, family members, religious views, political views, properties, court documents, and they expose this information to the wrong people, to bad people that can use to harass them, to stalk stalk them, to steal their identity. And it's a very dangerous game, and data is a monetary thing. It's a commodity to all these businesses. Now, the good news is that you have the right to protect yourself. So you would manually reach out to these data brokers, request to delete the information, and it would take you years to manually do that. And just one occurrence of collecting data, you have to start the process all over again. We're busy enough as it is. Huge loans have been taken out by people that don't even know about it because they have exposed their social security numbers and personal information and sold by these data brokers. And if you're not scared yet, with AI, now scammers can use AI-generated voices to mimic the voices of the family or friends to help them send them money. That is absolutely dark, and you don't have to be exposed to that. Here's how Incogni works. It has a repeated removal request. As soon as any of your data pops up on these data broker sites, Incogni takes care of it. And with their simple yearly subscription plan, they continue to delete your data as long as you keep using their services. And the best part, the entire process is 100% automated. Using Incogni is super simple, and you can protect yourself in just 3 easy steps. Number 1, create an account and tell them whose personal data they'll be removing. That's you. Number 2, grant them the right to work with you, and they'll contact these brokers on behalf of you. And number 3, kick back and watch them work. They'll constantly contact these data brokers, overcome any kind of objections, and keep you updated on the process the whole entire way. So Incogni is creating a very special offer for the viewers of my channel. Head to incogni.com/build it, or simply click the link in the description below. Use my promo code BUILD IT, and the first 100 people to sign up will get 60% off their Incogni. Thank Incogni for protecting me and the viewers of the channel. Now, let's get back to this video. So the plan that we want to do here, and I don't know if you've seen the walkthrough here, is obviously we want to demo this entire kitchen, which cabinets I'm not worried about. This is solid wood. They're not using any kind of, theoretically, any kind of asbestos products. We got a bunch of insulation that came down from the rooftop here. Now, if you're thinking, well, you already have potential asbestos there, aren't you nervous? Well, what they're saying is asbestos, even if it's in the house, in your walls and all that junk, it's not really that dangerous unless it is disrupted. If you started banging on it, dust comes off. If you start demoing, dust comes out. It starts flying in the air, these little fibrous molecules, and that's when it creates a hazardous situation.
70% of all asbestos used is in the construction industry, and it's found in over 3,000 different domestic and industrial products. Inside these rocks are veins filled with mineral fibers. In a continuous crushing and milling process, the fibers are separated from the host rock. Few other minerals are as versatile as asbestos. The fibers can reinforce cement or be woven into fire-resistant fabric. Some fibers are visible to the human eye, but it's the millions of smaller, invisible particles that are so deadly. 2 million of them could fit on a pinhead.
So just because you have a house with asbestos possibly in the wall, this is technically a safe space for it unless you start banging, cutting into the drywall and all that jazz. This is this creepy attic. I don't know if you've seen again the walkthrough, but in case you haven't, let's go see how creepy it is. Did I say attic? I meant basement. I'm an idiot. Oh, look at these spider webs all over the place. I got my light. Let's go check it out. All these newspapers and magazines here. The Family Handyman. So this is the unfinished basement, and it can't really be finished because the footings actually don't go far down enough. As you can see, they're about 3 feet tall here and then a bunch of dirt there. What we have here is we have a furnace. The HVAC system's coming up there. And over here we have the line that's coming out for the well that's here. Oh, and it turns out we also have an electric water heater that is rotting away. Check this out. It's cracked and all the water, I think, kind of got absorbed to the ground, which makes it kind of nice when it's down here, because when something does break and leak, you are not replacing flooring. And the cool thing here actually is this HVAC system is relatively new. I'm not sure what year this is, but this looks like something in the after 2000s. That kind of makes me excited. So the idea is here is going to be to demo this entire wall, possibly put asbestos in the air, open this section up to the living room, and then relocate the access into the HVAC system into a floor, possibly in the pantry, something like that. So you could still go in there while opening this concept. Now, typically in the bathrooms, shower panels and linoleum vinyl floors, they do have asbestos in it, specifically the stuff that was pre-1989. I don't know what the new stuff has or does not have, but those things are definitely the case. And here, we're gonna tear everything out and possibly build a second bathroom. Now, based off of where asbestos can be found, there's a giant list online. For example, the water tank insulation has asbestos. Pipe lagging, that's another kind of insulation, all right, pipes has it. Loose fitting insulation, that's the stuff above. Textured decorative coatings, that's like popcorn ceiling, stuff like that. We have ceiling tiles. The nice thing is we don't have them here. Bathroom panels, like I said. Toilet seats, which, that's interesting. Behind the fuse box, again, an insulation used behind the fuse box. Partition walls, which we have a partition wall that we're nervous about. Around the boiler, any kind of insulation there. Vinyl floor tiles. I've never seen vinyl floor tiles. We do have linoleum, but we'll see what it looks like. And then insulation behind the fireplace. Unfortunately for us, we don't have any insulation there. That might not be a good thing. And there's a huge list of like exterior stuff, like certain shingles, cement shingles that have it. Basically, it's a binding agent. That's what I'm learning from it is. They used it back then to create these products they could stick together. And over the years, they figured out a less harmful way of doing it, I guess.
Thousands of tons of asbestos are in pipe insulation. Thousands more are in the roofs and walls of buildings. Asbestos is used in many domestic products, but it wasn't until 1976, 78 years after the first danger sign, that the British industry introduced warning labels on some, but not all of these products. These spacemen are preparing to remove asbestos from a London housing project. It's such a dangerous job. The men wear masks with a separate oxygen supply and 3 layers of protective clothing, which must be decontaminated after use. Asbestos board for insulation is on the walls of 5 rooms, including this child's bedroom. As local residents were the first to realize, any damage to the wall and dangerous dust could be released. Over 6 million tons of asbestos have been put into houses, schools and hospitals all over Britain. Now, this one London borough has 5,000 dwellings to remove asbestos from. It's an expensive job that must be very carefully carried out. This special unit is trained to handle asbestos as if it were radioactive waste. It must be safely buried immediately at a specially licensed site.
Now, before we start testing anything that has asbestos or not, there's another ginormous issue with this house that I kind of knew going into it, but I didn't know the severity of it. So the house is over here. The well is right over there. And the neighbor's house is right over there. And this little stretch of grass, a little patch of land, it's kind of like no man's land. Yes, she takes care of it, but I think legally from zoning, it's somebody else who doesn't live here and doesn't take care of it and all that jazz. And the story gets even more complicated. So originally when I bought the house from this estate sale, the gentleman passed away, as you've already followed the series. They put on the estate sale and they had us disconnect the water from the well that the neighbor had. Apparently, there was no water connected here at the time. So the guy that lived here, Jim, had an agreement with the lady that lived next door to use one of her wells. Yes, she has 2 wells. How bougie is that? So he basically pays her a couple $100 a year to use that well, which is already plumbed into the house. Well, when the family came in and started selling the house, the realtor wanted to disconnect from the house, making any kind of loose ends, legally binding documents just broken off. They didn't like it because they're getting a little extra money for a well that they're not using, and I didn't like it because I didn't have any water. But legally, that's what they had to do. And it created this big uproar because this gal, the realtor, she threatened to sue if they disconnect. It pissed off my neighbor, so I had to like be nice to her and create a good relationship. But the water's still not connected, technically. And the reason I say technically is because the plumbing for the well is connected here. Here's the filter, and all I have to do is crank this lever, and now we have water to the house. But legally, it's not my water to use, even though legally my pipes are running through the adjacent property. Now the story gets even more complicated there. What I've discovered here on my front lawn is I have a water meter. So technically there's a water line that's running right into my house. Now here's another problem. There is no water meter, there's just 2 pipes that are closed off and capped off on each end. So the solution there is I would have to get a plumber to come out here, spend a couple of $1,000s to put a new water meter in. But then there's another variable. This community, the 2 streets back and forth here, also have a community well. I've never heard of the idea of a community well. It's kind of cute, but my neighbor said there's one, and it's plumbed into this house. Now, it's not technically plumbed, it's kind of right here. So what it is right now, if I go on the other side of the street, I hit this lever, water will start flowing down here to start kind of flood irrigating my lawn. So I'd have to spend money to get a pipe run down into the house to connect water from the community well. Now, there's no happy ending with this community well because my neighbor said that a few years ago, they did not treat that community well and it started growing different kind of fungi and bacteria. And allegedly they fixed that, but I don't want to take that risk. I don't know if anybody would. So I guess where we're gonna start with is I'm gonna figure out who owns the lease to that well, talk to them, maybe they can transfer that lease over to me. If that's not the case, then I would have to pay, I think it's close to $5,000 for them to put a new water meter in and then start getting annexed into the city because this is not within city limits. Your boy's got no water and a lot of projects that will require water. But we are where we are, and I'm sure we'll cross that bridge and find a solution when we get there. Let's start figuring out what has asbestos and what doesn't. Now, everything I've looked online has different kind of kits. You can't just look at it and send a picture. You kind of have to take a sample for a lab scientist to start looking through. I bought these on Amazon. These are not sponsored. Each one was roughly around 20 bucks. I got 3 of them because there's 3 sections that I'm specifically concerned about. Number 1 is the drywall. Number 2 is any kind of flooring, specifically that vinyl flooring. And number 3 is the insulation. The rest of it, I don't know, we'll take a gamble. So the way this stuff works is, well, we'll actually figure out how it works. Briefly, what I saw online is that you take a sample, you collect it, you mail it in, and then you download this app, and the results should be back to you via that app within, I think, 3 days, they said. Some of them do like 24 hours, but I want them to really take their time. They gave us these really cool, very efficient gloves, highest of the quality, and this little respirator, which I don't know what this little surgeon mask is gonna do, but we're gonna wear it because I paid for it. These are like cafeteria lady gloves. Oh, ripped it already. Okay, first sample, we'll do the easy stuff, the insulation. I'm more concerned about the insulation because, well, who wouldn't be when they look at that? They also send multiple samples if you want, so that's about a teaspoon. Okay, sample A will be our insulation. Let's do sample B will be our drywall. Oh, don't fall in, don't fall in. All right. What are we gonna test? Vinyl flooring, maybe? I need a pry bar for this. All right, so it's linoleum. However, there's also flooring tile. Now, let's send in the flooring tile and see what comes out from that because technically it's supposed to have asbestos, but nowhere know for sure. So let's send this flooring tile over. So I got all 3 samples filled out, submitted. Now I just gotta mail them out, and I think they're gonna contact me in 3 days via my email address, not an app. That was a whole different program that I saw, and we'll find out in 3 days, so stay tuned. All right, the results are finally in. It took a little bit longer because the business days had to bring it over the weekend. So the result of our testing for asbestos has finally arrived. I've done some more research about it, and it turns out they shut down the mining, which I didn't realize they mine for it, the mining plants in 2002 for asbestos. And by now you've already realized how crazy this substance really is. So let's open up our results and check it out. Okay. We got suspenseful music here going. All right, let's see here. Okay, the kitchen, sample A. It was the insulation, this brown stuff. Composition, 100% cellulose. I guess that's what it's made of. Asbestos results, none detected. That's disgusting. This stuff looks like it is asbestos, but I guess it's just what they used back then. And it's not dirty, it's just insulation, I guess, looked like that before. Or maybe is dusty, I don't know. I really thought that stuff was gonna have asbestos in it. All right, sample number 2. The chunk that we cut out of here for drywall, 85 gypsum, 15% cellulose. Cellulose is pretty popular to use in a lot of stuff. Asbestos results, you are not the father. Not detected. Again, 1963-year-old house. They used this stuff for 20, 30 years and none is in there. So big relief because we're gonna be tearing down a lot of drywall and this stuff is gonna be in the air. And I guess the asbestos remediation companies, they wear like full like hazmat suits, have an oxygen source, you can get through your bloodstream. This is all new to me, this is from what I'm hearing. So tearing down walls is gonna be a lot of stuff and looks like we're gonna be safe. All right, so the last test, test sample C, the laundry room floor tile. They've used this stuff in asbestos in floor tile for sure. Composition, 98 non-fibrous material. Asbestos results, 2%. There's 2% of asbestos in this floor tile. I don't even want to touch it again because last time I wore gloves. Now, from my research, even though there is asbestos in the floor tile, from my research is that anything that has in that, I think it's like sub 5%, but it's in that 1 to 2% composition, is not as dangerous to us. We're fortunately, it's just a small section. It's the only section that I found that actually has a floor tile. So when we're using it, we're gonna make sure we wear a respirator, wear our gloves, keep the dust from flowing up to an absolute minimum. Try not to break any of that stuff, which, you know, when you're bringing up old stuff, it will happen. But 2% asbestos, not as terrifying in a small section like that. I have a little bit sense of relief to know that we're gonna be working in somewhat of a, I don't know, not as much of a dangerous environment where I'm putting myself at risk and danger, and the guys that work with me, Kyle and Tim and everybody else. So pretty dang happy with these test results. Guys, overall, we're here. We did our due diligence. We got the tests done. They're cheap. Like I said, if you're working in an older home, highly encourage you to get this test result. I'll link the stuff that I use in the description below. They're not a sponsor, they're not affiliated. It's just the ones that I found that had the best reviews on it. They're sent to a lab, they check them out. Keeps me safe, keeps my family and my crew safe. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm excited to start working on the inside. There's a few other projects that we're gonna have to figure out in the backyard, like we wanna build a big pergola, which is gonna be insane. We're gonna build this giant pad for the patio, and obviously we're gonna paint this house. So please tune back next week for the next video. I'm so excited for it. Check this video out right here that I think you might enjoy.